Well, it's been a while since I've done a late night with Rike podcast, and it's a little after 3 a.m. Just through a series of events and a nap that kind of got out of control. I find myself at 3 a.m. wide awake. So I thought, well, I'm going to take some time out to do a podcast that's going to be probably a little longer than I usually do. I'd like to take some time to share with you some thoughts that I've had, and hopefully you'll find some value in it. Now, because this will be a podcast, even though it's on YouTube, there won't be any slideshow, so feel free to just listen as you go about whatever you're doing, whether it's surfing the net or taking a walk or cooking some food or driving your truck, whatever it is. Don't feel the need to have to look at the screen. Now, what's been on my mind for quite some time is in moments of reflection, I will look at where my life is today, which I consider myself very fortunate. You have no idea just how fortunate I am to be where I am now in the Philippines, married to a wonderful woman, in good health, still alive. A lot of stuff has come my way over my lifetime, as it has with everyone. I don't think anybody has really an easy life. We've all faced all kinds of problems and challenges. But I look at my particular set of difficulties over the years, and to be where I am today, happy, content, living a life with purpose. I have a wide array of friends. I have all my needs met. I live in comfort. I consider myself extremely lucky to be where I am now. And so every once in a while, I'll sit and think and play the what if game in my head. And I think to myself, what if, rather than being where I am now, which is 12 years and living in the Philippines, what if at this point in time I was still living in the United States, had barely heard about this place called the Philippines a few months ago, which is the situation that many of you are in. Maybe you just heard about this whole possibility of living in the Philippines a month or two ago, and now you've stumbled onto this channel and quite a few others looking for more information on just really what could be made of it. And so I think to myself, well, what if I was in your position and I'd never been here, didn't know much, but I was definitely interested? What would I do? Now, I imagine if I was still in the United States, I would probably be working somewhere or running my own business. I used to have a computer repair business years ago before I moved here, but that window of opportunity has pretty much closed. I won't go into all the reasons for that. You can probably imagine. But whatever I was doing in this what if scenario, I suppose the first thing I would do is I would take an assessment of where my life was at that moment. So let's say it's 2024. I'm in the United States. I'm working a job that I'm not really that thrilled about. And all I know is I want to move to the Philippines to take advantage of the opportunities for a more relaxed lifestyle, a more active lifestyle. And I would ask myself, how do I get there? Well, the first thing that comes up, and it should as a first priority, is, well, how am I going to support myself? I mean, it's one thing to work a job in the United States, pay the bills, but it's a whole different nut to crack when you're thinking about living in a foreign land where there are no jobs for you. There's hardly enough jobs for the locals. And even most of those jobs don't pay a living wage, especially not for the standard of living that most of us are accustomed to, which is not necessarily a rich lifestyle by our Western standards. But in the Philippines, if you want a nice apartment with air conditioning, and you want to eat good food, and you want to travel, and you want to date, and you want to do stuff, you're going to need an income. And as I mentioned, working in the Philippines is basically not an option. There are rare exceptions. There are some people who have skills that are very unique, and because they speak English, there are companies who will seek them out and pay them a living wage to move to the Philippines. But that's very rare. Now, in my case, right now, I'm 61 years old. And if I was in the United States, I'd be thinking to myself, well, I got another year before I'll be eligible to begin my Social Security. I paid well into that during my younger years, so I'm glad that I did. So in my case, I would just simply need to work from now until Social Security, less than a year, and save up as much money as I could. That would be my first stage of my plan. The next stage would be, even though I had Social Security and even though I can live a very comfortable lifestyle on it, I know that I want to be busy. I know that there's things that I have always wanted to do and things which I have done throughout the years, just in different capacities. I've always loved to communicate, and for years I wrote articles for a website that I did on almost a daily basis for years. But if I was going to get myself from the United States to the Philippines, and let's just say Social Security was not an option. Let's say it was still another 5 years away. What would I do then? Knowing that I could not work in the Philippines, well, after thinking it through and thinking it through, really there's only one solution, and that is to build up some kind of an income online. Now, I've been a big fan of being self-employed since my early 20s. I love small business. And when the internet came out, I thought to myself, this is like a whole new frontier for business. A regular guy like me could just start a business and make some money. No more need for renting out a storefront. I could build a website and stock it with all kinds of items that I didn't even have to physically have in inventory. I could drop ship this stuff. And in the beginning, back in the early 90s, you could do something like that, and it was pretty much going to be a surefire winner. You'd at least make some sales. But similar to the gold rush, pretty soon the landscape was flooded with people looking to make it big on the internet, make a buck. And as I said, in the early 90s, if you had some technical skills, you could put together a website, work out how you could do the online payments. The possibilities were wide open back then. But since then, the market has become beyond saturated. Everybody on the planet, it would seem, is looking to make a buck on the internet. Some in an honest way and some in a dishonest way. But definitely there are several 100,000 other people that have had the same idea and are selling the same products to the same global community, and it's a price war to the bottom. And this holds true whether your plan was to sell physical goods or provide a service, which are the two usual ways that businesses operate. So getting back to the task at hand, how does a person make an online income? Now, back when the whole pandemic started and we got pretty much locked down to being in one place for a whole year, I needed something to focus my time on other than running my channel. And so I decided back then I would set aside $1,500 just so that as I scoured the internet and came across this or that idea to make online income, and they wanted $15, $30, $40, whatever, for this or that course or ebook or cloud access to software, I told myself, I'm going to blow $1,500 to investigate, kind of like flipping stones over. I'm going to see what's underneath. I'm going to get in there, get the access, and I have the technical skills. I could build a website in 24 hours. I've done it before. And what I'll tell you is that within a year, I hadn't even spent all of the 1,500 to realize that 98% of what you see, whether it's on a YouTube guru channel, how to make money, how to do a side gig, take my course, whatever it is, 98% of it was pure snake oil BS. It all sounds great on paper, but it uses this reasoning. Well, if you just make one sale and you net $8 profit, all you got to do is make another sale. And if you make 1,000 sales in a month, well, you're going to make all this money. Well, yeah, the math checks out, except for the part about making 1,000 sales in a month. You can build a website. It all looks really nice and it's got great products to sell. It might be ebooks, it might be a video course, it might be office supplies, but whatever it is you're selling, it's not going to sell unless people actually look at the website. You need traffic. And that is the bottleneck that breaks down pretty much every idea that I've looked at. No matter how good your product or your service is, if you don't have traffic coming through your website or wherever it is you're pushing your product or service, you're not going to get sales. And you might even get, let's just say, 3,000 people to come to your website in a month. There's no guarantee that any percentage will buy anything. It's not uncommon that out of those 3,000, they look at what you've got, and even though you feel that it's of a good value at a good price, they'll just kind of shrug and go, I'll see what else is on the internet. And every single one of those 3,000 people will leave without buying what you're selling. Now, I hate to be such a Debbie Downer, but that's the reality of making money online, is that you have either got to possess a truly in-demand skill. I'll just take IT processing or code writing, for example. If you have a good technical skill that not many people have, you stand a better chance of finding your customers and being hired by them. Because when it comes to products, I'm telling you, whatever product you can think of, there are 100,000, maybe 1,000,000 other people selling that exact same item just on Amazon. And you can post your item on Amazon and you're competing with all those people as well as all the people selling that same item on their own website. So in my opinion, selling a product is going to be a very difficult task. I'm not saying it can't be done, but I'm saying that you're going to need a couple of things. You're going to need, number one, a source for that item where you can buy it at a low wholesale price to lock in some room for profit. You're going to need traffic. As I mentioned, you're going nowhere unless you can get some eyeballs to look at your sales pitch. And then you're going to need a system, usually a drop shipment system, so that you're able to fulfill orders even when you're asleep. It's that automated. And when you have, let's just say, 50 orders from 50 different people living in 50 different places, if one of them on Monday has a complaint and then a different one has a request 3 days later, you got to have this all organized so that you can provide customer service. Because if somebody says, hey, my item hasn't shown up yet, what's up with the shipment? And you don't get back with them, they will just cancel their order and find it from someone else. That's life in the big city. Now you might be asking yourself, well, what skills do I have that translate to something I could do online and make a living wage with? Now in the Philippines, a living wage is 1,500 US dollars as a single guy. I've talked about this in other videos. You can check those out at some other time. Now, all of this becomes a moot issue if you've got a pension that you can take before age 62. Maybe you got a pension working for the government or the police or a hospital or whatever. If so, that makes life a whole lot easier. I've met guys who retired in the Philippines in their late 40s because through this or that accident, they ended up on full disability. So getting back to answering the question, if I were in this position, what would I do? What would be my mindset? And the answer I come to is I would have to focus. If I truly want to succeed at this, I would not have to make a half-ass stab at trying to get to the Philippines. That's not going to be enough. That's not going to cut it. If I really want to find myself down the road, whether it's 6 months later or a year later or even 2 years later, if I really want that to happen, I've got to literally align everything I'm doing daily to accomplishing that task. That means taking an inventory of everything that I own. How much of it can I sell that I don't use or I don't need? How much of it can I liquidate? Put it up for sale online. Put it up in a garage sale or yard sale. But look at all the stuff you have and ask yourself, when's the last time I ever even took this boat out on the river? I know so many people that when I was in California, like a buddy of mine that I worked with, he was so excited to buy this boat, so proud of it, showed it to me. And a year later, I happened to be back at his house. There was the boat in the driveway, and we only lived maybe 30 minutes from a lake. And I asked him, how many times have you taken this boat? Now that it's been a year, how many times have you taken it out on the water? He said 3 times. And I told him, I said, for the price of the boat and the price of the insurance you're paying on it, wouldn't it have been cheaper to just rent a boat the 3 times you went to the lake? They say that the 2 happiest days for a boat owner is the day he buys his boat and the day he sells it. So look at all the stuff you got and have what I have found has been helpful for me over the years is to have a minimalist mindset. Now, minimalist does not mean you're down to 1 change of clothing and you only take a bath once a week or something. It's not anything ridiculous like that. It's not about making yourself poor. Being a minimalist is having the things that you need and then some of the things you truly desire that bring you pleasure in your life. Everything else can go. Now, you might have had high aspirations when you bought that mountain bike that you were going to get in shape, you were going to ride every morning as the sun came up and all this stuff. But in reality, it's just been hanging in the garage for 3 years. Accept the reality that it is not a priority enough for you to actually get on the bike and ride it and just sell it. Because if your goal is to get to the Philippines, you're not going to take that bike with you anyway. You could, if you really rode bike every day, then it would be worth it to ship it with your stuff to the Philippines. Again, being a minimalist is not about scraping your life down to nothing. It's trimming off all the fat, keeping the things that you use and that bring you pleasure. But somehow we've been fooled by American marketing into thinking that our garage needs to be filled with 20 different options to do something recreational, and that requires us buying a jet ski, a boat, a mountain bike, exercise equipment, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Another buddy of mine, he literally had a collection of everything I mentioned gathering dust in his garage. He couldn't even park the car in the garage because he had it filled with stuff that was literally just gathering dust. So having a minimalist mindset would be crucial. And as I said, aligning everything you do with the goal of getting to the Philippines. That means taking a look at your budget and asking yourself, okay, I know I need money for the Philippines. I'm going to need to buy a plane ticket and this and that. And not that you can move there on a fixed amount, but you are moving towards your goal if you have as much liquid cash as possible. So look at your budget. Before you tell yourself, oh, I don't have enough money to go to the Philippines. Well, could you save money looking at your budget? Do you even have a budget? It doesn't have to be anything complicated on Excel. You can take a plain sheet of paper, put a line down the middle. On the left side, you put all your monthly expenses. On the right side, you put the sources of your income. You subtract your expenses from your income. There's how much you are ahead or behind on your budget. So go through your budget with a fine-tooth comb, keeping in mind your goal is to get to the Philippines. How many monthly subscriptions are you even on for stuff that you don't even use? Maybe some app for creating AI animations for Facebook. You're blowing $8 a month on that. You never even use it. You forgot you even signed up for it 2 years ago. You would be amazed how much money you can save by canceling automatic recurring payments for stuff that you don't even use anymore, or stuff that you can do without. And then there are habits, bad habits that are not good for your health, that are costing you money. It might be cigarettes. If you've been waiting for a good reason to be motivated about quitting cigarettes, make it the Philippines. Add up how much you spend in a month on cigarettes. That's money that could go into the kitty for you to get to the Philippines. Now take that monthly amount, multiply it by 12. That's how much money you're blowing on something that is not going to help you get to the Philippines. It might be something like Starbucks. I know people who easily spend $200 to $300 a month grabbing some Starbucks coffee on their way to work and on their way home from work. They're in that drive-through every day, twice a day, when they could just do like a buddy of mine did. He's weaning himself off of Starbucks, and what he did was he went and bought a really nice coffee machine where he pops in these little packets and it'll make Starbucks coffee right there in his kitchen at a fraction of the cost. He's still getting his coffee, but he's not blowing $200-300 a month for it. So consider those kind of changes that will help your health. Look at your budget and go, how much money do I spend going out to dinner because I don't know how to cook? Money that you're giving to franchises like McDonald's or Wendy's or whatever your particular poison is, that stuff is bad for your health. And I'm not saying that blindly. Believe me, I could spend the next hour talking about the starches, the chemicals, the preservatives, the carbohydrates, the vegetable oils, the high processed food that you're being fed at an overinflated price, and it's bad for your health. It's giving you hypertension, it's giving you inflammation, it's putting fat around your liver and your heart. Again, let the Philippines be your motivation to eat healthier while cutting your budget down. And you might say, well, I don't know how to cook. Learn. It's not that hard. Believe me, it's not rocket science. You don't need a chemistry degree to cook a meal. And these days on YouTube, I guarantee you, if all you did was went out and bought yourself a crock pot, you could find enough crock pot recipes on YouTube to last you for years. And it's incredibly easy. A monkey could do it. You chop up the meat, you put it in the crock pot. You chop up the vegetables, you put it in the crock pot. You dash in the spices that it says on the recipe into the crock pot. You fill it with water, you put the lid on, and bingo, you've got beef stew. A couple hours later, you didn't even have to do anything other than put it in the crock pot. It really doesn't take a high IQ to chop up some fresh vegetables, take a chicken breast, cut it up into cubes, put it in a pan with a little bit of sesame oil or olive oil, fry it up all nice, toss those chopped vegetables in with it, give it some salt, some pepper, maybe a dash of soy sauce, and you've got yourself a meal, which is healthier and a fraction of the cost of what you would spend going out to eat every day. And as soon as your brain starts telling you, well, that's too much work. I don't want to have to learn how to cook. I don't want to wash dishes. My question to you is, do you want to get to the Philippines or not? Is the Philippines your laser focused priority? Because if you're going to start making excuses, you're never going to get there. I've told the story before about a guy that I knew on our track team in my high school. I was briefly on the track team, nothing noteworthy. I didn't even finish the whole season because I ended up getting an injury. But this other kid was just another kid in town on the track team and not anything super special. You can look him up, Danny Harris from Paris High School. He later went on to compete in the Olympics. And his story is the same as just about any other Olympic competitor you could ever research. The reason he was able to compete at Olympic level was because he was laser focused, and everything he did from sunrise to sundown was focused on completing that goal. It contributed in some way to him competing in the Olympics. Whether it was his exercise routine or the food he ate or the amount of sleep he got or the supplements and vitamins he took and the things he didn't do. He didn't engage in dangerous sports. He didn't spend his time sucking down alcohol at a nightclub Friday nights. So again, I ask you, how much do you really want to get to the Philippines? Something that you're willing to focus on. Because if it's not, and you just watch YouTube videos and say to yourself, oh, that would be so great. Man, look at these guys. They're dating wonderful Filipinas, and this guy got married, and man, that one over there, now him and his wife are building a house, and this guy over here, he's single, and he's living at a resort at a super cheap price, paying less for rent than I spend on my car payment. And that's all that's going to happen. You're going to be watching from a distance, and years are going to be going by unless you start aligning your actions to get you where you want to go. And I'll be blunt and honest with you. What I'm telling you is easy to comprehend, but it's going to be difficult to execute. The easy part is understanding that if you want to get to the Philippines, then your actions need to line up with anything that will get you 1 inch closer, whether it's money or developing a skill. But is it going to be easy? No. You may have to learn how to cook to save money. You may look at the place you're renting and say to yourself, you know what? I don't need a place this big. I can downsize and save some money on rent. I've got some cash, but I'm paying this huge car payment. Why don't I find a reliable used car, purchase that, sell the newer car that's sucking up my money, and come out ahead? Again, I'm not saying it'll be easy. It's not even going to happen quickly. It's not like you'll be in the Philippines by the end of the month. I know guys that they know they have minor children and they need to be in their kids' life until their kids are at least 18. And for their sake, they're putting off the Philippines. And that's the right thing to do. So I'm not saying it'll be easy, but what I am saying is it'll be worth it. I believe it was the Greeks who said, nothing worth having ever came without effort. And I think what hamstrings so many guys from ever getting on a plane to the Philippines, what holds them back is they don't want to put in the effort. They don't want to make changes to their lifestyle. They don't want to change their budget. They don't want to learn a new skill, a skill that maybe they can make money on online. There was a time in the past when I got my ESL certificate, my TEFL cert, so that I could be qualified to teach English online. Now, 7 years ago, that was a doable thing. Now, that meant that I had to spend about 6 weeks studying online, taking the test, and I got my certificate. But before you go running off and thinking that's what you're going to do, times have changed. The demand for English teachers has dropped dramatically. A whole lot of people, such as myself, who got qualified and certified and everything else, found themselves without any work because again, the demand just dropped incredibly. But I only bring that up as an example. If you don't have a marketable skill, dig around the internet and see what could you learn that you could then do for people that they would pay you. Take a look at what's available on the curriculum for the local junior colleges. If you could take just enough classes to actually learn how to do accounting, if you put your nose to the grindstone and learned enough to be competent to do the books for a small mom and pop business, you could do that online. In the beginning, you'd have to cold call and contact a lot of small businesses and say, hey, how much are you paying for accounting? I'll do it for 20% less. You get enough of those accounts going, yeah, you'll be working while you're in the Philippines until you get your retirement, but you'll be in the Philippines earning an income, sending updated Quicken files back to them so that they can have their books in order. And that's just one idea, but the idea really is think outside the box. If you don't have a marketable skill that you could sell online right now, what can you learn so that you do have a skill? A lot of people don't know that Microsoft offers for free Microsoft certificates in a whole lot of IT related courses. You can learn to do a lot of things with Microsoft that you can, with a little ingenuity, parlay it into something that makes you a living. One idea is you learn on Google. They have also their own courses on how to make sure that a business is optimized on Google Maps. You would be amazed how many small mom and pop shops all over the United States, they don't know nothing about Google. They don't even know Google Maps exists. They're too busy running their business. They are not computer nerds. They barely have email. Those are the people that you could approach once you've learned the skill and say, hey, I notice your business is not on Google Maps. Did you know X amount of customers come in through online searches through Google and Google Maps? You've got a pet grooming business. When I search pet grooming in your city, you don't show up in Google Maps. For a fee, I will put you on Google Maps and optimize it so that you're visible with your hours, your contact info, a map, photos of your menu or whatever you're offering. I'll do all that for a set price. And there are hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of businesses you could just Google all day long and make the same pitch. Now, I'm sure there are better ideas than this out there. It's just a matter of how much you're willing to invest in yourself to learn something new. Because this all comes back to you need an income. You cannot just save up $50,000 and move to the Philippines. Even though it's a cheaper, lower cost of living, you're going to run out of money in 3.5 years. And then what? You better be having Social Security kick in before those 3.5 years, or you're going to be in a really hard spot. And you don't want to end up like one of these guys that you hear about or see on Facebook or YouTube, the foreigner that ran out of money overseas and now he's sleeping on the beach or living behind a dumpster somewhere. You don't want to be that guy. So maybe at this point, you're being a little self-reflective yourself and you're thinking, you know what? I understand what Rike's saying. I know I got to be really serious if I want to get myself to the Philippines with an income. But maybe you hear all that and you go, you know, now that I look at it, I don't want to go that far. I don't want to do that. I don't want to learn anything new. I don't want to change my budget. I don't want to save any money. I don't want to make any changes. If that's honestly where you're at, that's okay. Not everybody is meant to live in the Philippines. Some guys come here and they hate the weather so much they leave. Me and most people, 2 months and pretty soon you don't even notice it much. But the point being, not everybody is motivated enough to take advantage of the lower cost of living and the ample dating atmosphere that is in the Philippines. Not everybody is going to make that effort. And if you honestly look at yourself and go, nah, it would be nice, but nah, I'm just not willing to do what it takes. That's okay. No harm, no foul. It's like Clint Eastwood said in one of his movies, I forget which one it was, but he said, a man's got to know his limitations. Maybe one of you can remember which movie that was in. So then if that is your position, that means that you're going to basically stay where you are. Whether you're living in the United States or you're living in Canada, you're living in UK, you're living in Australia, wherever it is you're living, by default, if you're not going to move abroad overseas, you're going to stay where you are. You might move to another part of your country to take a different job or something, but basically, you're going to stay in your country. And just know this, brace yourself for more of the same. The crappy choices in the dating environment where you're only allowed to date women within 3 years of your age or older. And let's face it, if you're a guy in his 50s, if you're only allowed to date women 47 years or older, not all, but let's just say a good 90% of those women that are 47 years and older, they are set in their ways. They've been through, who knows, 1 or 2 divorces. They got a couple of kids that are probably latchkey kids, and you're going to have to deal with them. She's probably racked up a decent amount of debt, which becomes your debt the second you marry. And on top of all that, her standard is you better be making a whole lot of money. The real kicker is the women demanding all this are not exactly all that much to look at. Their bloom has faded. They have hit the wall. Only in their demented mind do they think that a man making $300,000 a year is going to pick a 47-year-old woman when he could have a 28-year-old woman. But that's what they think. And if they go with you, as far as they're concerned, they're settling, so don't expect much out of them. That's pretty much what you're looking at with most of the women. Now, it's not all doom and gloom. Can you find a good-hearted, loving woman that'll make you happy in your area? Yes, you can. Odds are you'll find her at a church. If you want a decent relationship or a decent shot at finding a decent woman, most churches teach people to be loving, to be kind, to be patient, to be a good wife. So go where they teach that to the men and the women. But don't just go there to steal her from the church. Otherwise, those convictions are going to start to fade. Be prepared to go to church with her. Become a part of what she believes in. There's a trade-off there. You want a great woman, it's like the old Aretha Franklin song. If you want a do-right woman, you got to be a do-right man. So if you are unwilling or you just simply choose, you don't want to be laser focused on realigning your life to get to the Philippines, accept the fact that either you're going to look for a good woman in the right places or you're just going to give up on that. Now, I know plenty of men who choose that option. They just decide it's not worth it. That's not what I want. I'm never going to get what I want in my country. So if I can't have it on my terms, forget it. I'm better off alone than hitching my wagon to some older woman's problems. And I get that. And I totally agree. So this begs the question, okay, well, since you're not going to be looking for a relationship the rest of your life, what are you going to do with your life? Think about what's important to you. Think about the goals you had and the ambitions and dreams you had back when you were 18 years old. What was important to you back then? What did you always want to do? Do that. What did you always want to learn? Learn it. Did you always want to write a novel, a sci-fi book or something? Well, since you're not going to be spending any time dating or in a relationship, Fire up a Word document and start writing that book. You always wanted to work in radio? Start looking into what that requires and start knocking on some doors and making some phone calls and press until, hey, you're on the radio. Now, in case you haven't noticed by now, my philosophy in life is that you need to be proactive. To me, the worst nightmare is to go through life just letting life happen to you. You just every day accept whatever life tosses at you. That's a nightmare. Never accept that. Be proactive. It all starts in your brain. What do I want to do? What's important to me? And if it's not the Philippines, you still have to answer that question. What do I want to do with my life? We've already, all of us, blown enough time, enough years thinking, I'll get around to that later. We've let too many sunsets go down to be thinking like that anymore. If we always wanted as our dream to sell everything, buy a boat, and live on that boat, well then align yourself to get that done. And it may not even be something so grand. I know a guy who just for years, all he ever wanted was one day to have enough peace and quiet in the house to be able to set aside a big room to create a model train scenario with the mountains and the tunnels. You've seen it. The model trains, and they go through and they blow the smoke and all this stuff. And you know what? He finally did it. He also always wanted to write a book. He did that too. He even sent me a hard copy of the book. And he did it by being proactive. He did it by waking up each morning and saying, you know what? I'm going to write another little bit on the book. If it takes me 4 hours to crank out 2 or 3 pages, I'm going to work on that book. And he got it done. Matter of fact, I have another friend of mine also wrote a book. Another one of his dreams, my buddy Mike in Thailand, many of you may know him. Another one, he was in radio years ago, and one of his dreams was to have his own radio station. Now, he's got 2 radio stations online in Thailand. He loves doing it. So to wrap up, I just want to challenge you. Be proactive. Make decisions and act on them. Think about what you want to do in life. And if it's not the Philippines, that's okay. But if you're going to stay where you are, figure out what's important to you. What are you passionate about? Don't wait for mañana, someday. Start working on it now. Take baby steps. Start Googling about that subject. Start finding websites that'll help you get it done. Heck, with ChatGPT, you can have a conversation with it and say stuff like, I want to have my own backyard aviary and raise birds. How do I do that? And it'll start giving you all the information and websites you need to get it done. You can go on YouTube. How do I build an aviary? And there's some guy who has devoted his channel to showing you everything he has learned about anything that you want to do. I forget if it was Thoreau or who that said, most men live their lives out in quiet desperation. Don't be that guy. Don't go quietly into the night. Be the man that even if you fail, you can tell yourself, you know what? I gave it my best shot. Kind of like really the story of Rocky 1. If you remember, Rocky's goal fighting against Apollo Creed, the champion, his goal was not to beat him. His goal was not to get the heavyweight belt. He tells Adrian, I just want to know I can go the distance. I just want to know I can stand toe-to-toe with him in the ring and hold my own. So even if you make your best attempt and it doesn't quite come out the way exactly you wanted, you won't go to bed that last time in your life saying, man, I really should have put some effort into this or that. Don't end it all with that kind of a regret. Make the effort. I have probably failed at more things than I could even list off the top of my head. Ideas that I had, business ideas, romance ideas, so many ideas but at least I gave it a shot and I learned something out of the failure. I became a smarter person for it. But you only get that through experience. You've got to be willing to make the effort. Actually get up and take action. Be proactive. I'm not here to talk you into coming to the Philippines. I guess all I really want to communicate to you today is be proactive. Think about what you want, wherever that might be, and go for it.